My ex-wife left me for my brother, but years later she discovered I had become before clicking subscribe to hear more exciting stories like this and avoid 10 years of bad luck in love. The Safe Haven Bar was an oasis in the midst of the bustling city. Its dim lights and the scent of old wood welcomed those seeking to escape their problems, if only for a few hours. Among its regulars was Alex Mercer, a 35-year-old man whose gaze reflected the weight of a story he preferred to forget. Sitting at the bar, Alex absent-mindedly stirred his whiskey as his mind wandered to the events that had turned his life upside down just 6 months ago. The memory of that fateful night when he discovered the betrayal of his wife, Melissa, with his own brother, Chris, still caused a knot in his stomach. "Another drink, Alex?" asked Ray, the bar owner, interrupting his thoughts. Alex nodded with a tired gesture. "Thanks, Ray. Looks like it's going to be one of those nights." Ray, a robust man in his 50s, poured him another glass while observing him with concern. He knew Alex's story well, and like many in the bar, had become a silent confidant. "You know, kid," Ray began, wiping the bar, "sometimes I think you spend too much time here. Life goes on, you know." Alex gave a bitter smile. "And what's left for me, Ray? I lost my wife, my brother, my job at the salon. Everything went to hell in the blink of an eye." At that moment, the bar door opened, letting in a gust of fresh air and a young woman. It was Emma, a friend of Alex's since childhood. Her presence momentarily lit up the man's face. "Alex, I knew I'd find you here," Emma exclaimed, approaching the bar. "I have incredible news. You won't believe what's happened." Before Emma could continue, the bar door opened. Again this time, the figures that entered made the atmosphere tense immediately. Melissa, Alex's ex-wife, arm in arm with Chris, his brother, entered the place as if they owned it. Alex felt the ground open beneath his feet. He wasn't prepared to face them, not here in his refuge. Melissa, with her characteristic arrogance, approached the bar, deliberately ignoring Emma's presence. "Well, well, look who we have here," Melissa said with a tone laden with disdain. "The great Alex Mercer, drowning his sorrows in alcohol. Don't you get tired of being so pathetic?" Chris, visibly uncomfortable, tried to calm Melissa. "Honey, maybe we should leave." "Leave? Why?" she responded, raising her voice. "This place is as good as any other for a drink. Besides, don't you think Alex should know how well we're doing? After all, thanks to his incompetence, we now have the most successful salon in the city." Alex gripped his glass so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Emma, sensing the tension, intervened. "I think that's enough, Melissa. Why don't you leave and let us be in peace?" Melissa let out a laugh. "And who are you to tell me what to do? Alex's new conquest. Let me tell you, dear, you don't know what you're getting into. This man is nothing but a failure, a mediocre stylist who—" "You're wrong," Ray interrupted, with a firm voice that made everyone turn to him. "Alex is no longer the same man you knew." Silence took over the bar. Even the other patrons had stopped talking, attentive to the scene unfolding before them. Alex looked at Ray in confusion, not understanding what he meant. Emma, taking advantage of the pause, spoke up. "Actually, Melissa, if you had let me finish speaking when I arrived, you'd know that Alex has just been named head stylist for the upcoming fashion week in New York." Melissa's eyes widened in disbelief. Chris, for his part, let out a whistle of amazement. "That's impossible," Melissa stammered. He never... "Never what, Melissa?" Alex intervened, speaking for the first time. "Never capable of succeeding without you two?" He stood up slowly, drawing himself up to his full height. For the first time in months, Alex felt he was regaining some of the confidence he had lost. "Perhaps I should thank you," he continued, with a calmness that surprised even Emma. "If you hadn't betrayed me, maybe I would never have had the courage to pursue my dreams outside of that small hair salon." Melissa, visibly affected, tried to compose herself. "Alex, I didn't know. Maybe we could what, Melissa?" Alex cut her off. "Start over? I'm sorry, but that's something that will never happen." Chris, who had remained silent, stepped forward. "Brother, Alex raised a hand, stopping his words. "Not now, Chris. This is neither the time nor the place." The atmosphere in the bar was electric. No one dared to move, as if they feared breaking the delicate balance that had been established. It was then that Emma, with an enigmatic smile, added, "And that's not all, Alex. There's something else you should know." As Emma leaned in to whisper in Alex's ear, the expressions of Melissa and Chris went from surprise to fear. What else could be hiding behind this unexpected revelation? The night at Safe Haven was just beginning, and with it, a series of events that would forever change the lives of all. Those present, Emma's whisper resonated in Alex's ears like thunder on a silent night. His eyes widened as he processed the information he had just received. For a moment, the bustle of the bar seemed to fade away, and only he and his friend's words existed. "Are you sure about this, Emma?" Alex asked in a low voice, his gaze fixed on Melissa and Chris, who seemed increasingly uncomfortable. Emma nodded firmly. "Completely. I've been investigating since everything blew up 6 months ago. I didn't want to tell you anything until I was sure. But now I am..." Alex took a deep breath, trying to maintain his composure. Emma's revelation not only changed his perspective on past events, but also shed new light on his future. Melissa, unable to bear the tension, stepped forward. "Alex, whatever she's told you, it's probably an exaggeration. You know how Emma is, always dramatizing things." Alex's bitter laugh surprised everyone present. "Dramatizing, Melissa? Like when you dramatized your love for me for years while planning? Behind my back?" Chris, visibly nervous, tried to intervene. "Brother, I think we should talk in private. There are things you don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," Alex interrupted, his voice laden with a mixture of pain and contained rage. "I understand that while I was killing myself working in that small salon, you two not only betrayed me emotionally, but you were also diverting funds." The silence that followed this statement was deafening. The few remaining customers in the bar held their breath, aware that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Melissa turned pale. I don't know what you're talking about." "You don't?" Alex took out his phone and showed a series of documents on the screen. Bank statements, suspicious transfers, fake invoices. Emma has been very thorough in her investigation. Chris, seeing that the situation was slipping out of their hands, decided to change tactics. "Alex, brother, you have to understand the salon was on the brink of bankruptcy. What we did was to save it." "Save it?" Alex's voice trembled slightly. "And the only way to save it was to deceive me, rob me, and destroy our family." Ray, who had been observing in silence, approached and put a hand on Alex's shoulder in support. "Son, perhaps you should consider taking this to the authorities." The mention of authorities seemed to shake Melissa out of her stupor. "You can't do that. Do you have any idea what would happen to us? And do you have any idea what you put me through?" Alex responded, his voice charged with emotion. "I lost my marriage, my brother, my business. I thought I had hit rock bottom, that I was worthless." Emma, moved by her friend's words, intervened. "But you were wrong, Alex. Look at all you've accomplished since then. New York is waiting for you, and this is just the beginning." Emma's words seemed to have a cathartic effect on Alex. For the first time in months, a genuine smile lit up his face. "You're right, Emma. I've achieved more than I ever imagined, and I did it on my own." He turned to Melissa and Chris, who seemed to have aged years in a matter of minutes. "I'm not going to report you, at least not for now." Both let out a sigh of relief, but Alex wasn't finished. "But I want you to understand something. From this moment on, you two don't exist for me. I don't want to see you again. I don't want to know about you. The next time we cross paths, you'll be strangers to me." Chris, with tears in his eyes, tried to approach his brother. "Alex, please." Alex raised a hand, stopping his advance. "It's over, Chris. You chose your path and I chose mine. I just hope that someday you can look at yourself in the mirror without feeling ashamed." Melissa, seeing how everything was crumbling around her, made one last desperate attempt. "Alex, I know we made mistakes, but what we had was real. We can try again, start from scratch." Emma's laughter interrupted Melissa's pleas. "Are you serious? After everything you've done, you think you have the right to ask for a second chance?" Alex looked at his ex-wife with a mixture of pity and determination. "I'm sorry, Melissa, but that's never going to happen. What we had died the day you decided to betray me. There's no going back." The silence that followed was broken by the sound of the bar door opening. A woman in her 30s, with brown hair and green eyes, entered the place. Her gaze scanned the scene until it stopped on Alex. "Alex, is everything okay?" she asked with concern. Alex smiled when he saw her, and for the first time that night, the tension completely left his body. "Lucy, I'm glad you're here." He turned to Melissa and Chris, who were observing the newcomer with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. "Let me introduce you to Lucy, my girlfriend. The woman who taught me that true love exists and that it's built on trust and mutual respect." Lucy approached and took Alex's hand, ignoring the stunned looks from Melissa and Chris. "Am I interrupting something?" "Not at all," Alex replied, gently kissing her cheek. "In fact, I think you arrived just in time to close a chapter of my life." He turned to his ex-wife and his brother one last time. "Goodbye, Melissa. Goodbye, Chris. I hope someday you find the peace that I have found." With those words, Alex took Lucy's hand and headed towards the exit of the bar. Emma and Ray exchanged looks of satisfaction before following them. Melissa and Chris were left alone in the middle of the bar, surrounded by the curious and disapproving glances of the few remaining customers. The weight of their actions and the consequences of their decisions finally fell on them with full force. As the door of safe haven closed behind Alex and his friends, a new page was opening in his life. The road to New York and a bright future stretched out before him, finally free from the past that had tormented him for so long. The sun was timidly peeking between the city buildings when Alex opened his eyes. For the first time in months, he woke up without that feeling of heaviness that had accompanied him since his divorce. The events of the previous night at Safe Haven seemed like a distant dream, but the reality of his new life was beginning to settle in Lucy, who was sleeping peacefully beside him. Stirred slightly, Alex observed her with a mixture of tenderness and gratitude. She had been his anchor in the darkest moments, and now they were preparing together to face a future full of possibilities. The sound of the phone interrupted the silence of the morning. Alex hurried to answer, so as not to wake Lucy. "Hello?" he whispered. "Alex, did I wake you?" Emma's energetic voice resonated on the other end of the line. "Don't worry, I was already awake." "What's going on?" "We need to talk. There's something I didn't tell you last night about the investigation. Can we meet in an hour at our usual cafe?" The seriousness in Emma's tone made Alex sit up, fully alert. "Sure, I'll be there." When he hung up, Lucy was already awake, looking at him curiously. "Everything okay, love?" Alex gave her a soft kiss before responding. "I hope so. Emma wants to see me, says she has more information about, well, you know." Lucy nodded. Understandingly, "Go, you know I'm here for whatever you need." An hour later, Alex was entering the small cafe where he used to meet with Emma. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee and toasted bread filled the air. At a table in the back, his friend was waiting for him with 2 steaming cups in front of her. "Good morning, Mr. International Stylist," Emma greeted with a smile, although Alex noticed some tension in her gaze. "Emma, you've got me on pins and needles. What's so important that it couldn't wait?" The woman took a folder out of her bag and slid it across the table. "Last night I only told you part of what I discovered. The diversion of funds from the salon is just the tip of the iceberg." Alex opened the folder and began to review the documents, his frown deepening as he progressed. This is much bigger than we thought." Emma nodded gravely. "Melissa and Chris weren't just stealing from the salon. It seems they're involved in a money laundering network that spans several businesses in the city." "My God!" Alex ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed by the information. "How did I not notice any of this?" "Don't blame yourself, Alex. They were very careful. Besides, who would suspect their own wife and brother?" Silence fell over them as Alex digested the new information. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, disappointment. but above all, a deep sense of having been used for years. "What are we going to do with this, Emma?" he finally asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I think we have no choice, Alex. This is too big for us to handle on our own. We have to take it to the authorities." Alex closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the decision on his shoulders. Reporting Melissa and Chris would mean exposing them to serious legal consequences, possibly years in prison. Despite all the harm they had caused him, the idea of being responsible for their downfall caused a knot in his stomach. "I need time to think, Emma. This changes everything." Emma extended her hand across the table, taking Alex's in a gesture of support. "I understand, but don't forget that every day that passes, more people could be affected by their actions." Alex nodded, aware of the truth in his friend's words. "I know, give me until tomorrow, okay? I need to talk to Lucy about this." "Of course, and Alex, remember that. You're not alone in this. We're all with you." As he left the cafe, Alex felt the world spinning around him, the excitement of his professional success now mixed with the bitterness of this new discovery. How would he face Melissa and Chris with this information? And how would this affect his future in New York? With his mind full of questions and his heart heavy, Alex headed home. He knew that the decisions he would make in the coming hours could change not only his life, but the lives of many people around him. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Melissa and Chris were meeting in a discreet cafe, unaware of the storm that was brewing. "We have to do something, Chris," Melissa whispered, her face a mask of concern. "If Alex decides to talk..." Chris interrupted her with a gesture. "Relax, I know my brother, he won't turn us in." "Are you sure? After last night?" "Trust me, besides, we have an ace up our sleeve. If things get ugly, we can always use you-know-what." Melissa nodded, although uneasiness didn't leave her eyes. "I hope you're right, I can't go to jail, Chris, I can't..." While the couple was conspiring, they were unaware that their conversation was being observed from afar by a familiar figure. Ray, the owner of Safe Haven, was quietly putting away his phone after taking some discreet photos. His loyalty to Alex had led him to follow the couple, and now he had information that could be crucial. The afternoon was falling over the city, and with it the threads of fate began to intertwine in unexpected ways. Alex, without knowing it, was at the center of a web of secrets and lies that would soon come to light, forever changing the course of his life and those around him. Alex and Lucy's apartment had become a haven of calm in the midst of the emotional storm that was ravaging their lives. Sitting on the couch, with forgotten cups of tea on the coffee table, the couple discussed the recent discoveries. "I can't believe the magnitude of all this," Lucy said, leafing through the documents Emma had provided. "Alex, this is serious? Very serious." Alex nodded, his gaze lost somewhere on the wall. "I know, and the worst part is, I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to forget it all, focus on our future in New York. But you know you can't simply ignore it," Lucy completed, taking his hand. "Love, I understand it's difficult, they're your ex-wife and your brother, but think about all the people who could be suffering because of their actions." Lucy's words resonated in Alex's mind, mixing with memories of his past life. Images of happy moments with Melissa and Chris intertwined with the bitter reality of their betrayal. "You're right," he finally said, squeezing Lucy's hand. "I can't let this continue. I have to do the right thing." Just then, Alex's phone vibrated. It was a message from Ray. "Need to see you urgently. I have information you must know. Come to the bar as soon as possible." Intrigued and somewhat worried, Alex stood up. "It was Ray. He says he has important information. I'm going to see him." Lucy looked at him with concern. "Do you want me to come with you?" "No. Stay, I'll be back soon and tell you everything," he replied, kissing her softly before leaving. Meanwhile, in a luxurious office in the city center, Chris was meeting with an intimidating-looking man. The atmosphere was tense, and Chris's nervousness was palpable. "Mr. Vasquez, I assure you everything is under control," Chris said, his voice betraying his insecurity. The man, known in the underworld as the Shark, looked at him with disdain. "I hope so, Chris. Because if your brother decides to talk, It's not just you who will fall, and you know I don't like falling. Chris swallowed hard. Alex won't say anything, I know him. For your sake, I hope you're right. Remember, we have many resources to silence problems. The veiled threat didn't go unnoticed by Chris, who left the office with trembling legs. When he reached his car, he frantically dialed Melissa's number. "We need to meet now," he said, as soon as she answered. "Things are getting complicated." At Safe Haven, Alex found Ray closing the bar early. The old bartender's face was marked with concern. "Thanks for coming so quickly, kid," Ray said, guiding him to a secluded table. "What I have to show you can't wait." He took out his phone and showed Alex the photos he had taken that afternoon. "I followed them after last night." They were very nervous, talking in whispers. "And look at this." In one of the photos, Chris could be clearly seen, handing an envelope to a man Alex didn't recognize. "Who's that guy?" he asked, feeling a chill run down his spine. Ray lowered his voice. "He's known as the Shark. He's a dangerous guy, Alex. He's involved in all kinds of dirty business." The revelation hit Alex like a punch to the stomach. The situation was much worse than he had imagined. It was no longer just about embezzlement or money laundering. His brother and ex-wife were involved with truly dangerous people. "Ray, this changes everything," Alex said, his mind working at full speed. "I have to do something, and fast." The old bartender nodded gravely. "Be careful, kid. These people don't play fair." As Alex was leaving the bar, his phone rang. It was an unknown number. With his heart racing, he answered. "Alex Mercer," said a deep voice on the other end of the line. "This is Detective Johnson. We need to talk about your ex-wife and your brother. We have reason to believe they're involved in illegal activities." The world seemed to stop for a moment. Alex looked around, suddenly aware of every shadow, every noise. The decision he had been postponing now presented itself before him, unavoidable and urgent. "Detective," he finally responded, "I think I have information that will interest you." As night fell over the city, the threads of fate began to tighten Alex, caught in the center of a web of lies and danger, prepared to make a decision that would change not only his life, but that of everyone around him. Somewhere in the city, Melissa and Chris were meeting, unaware that their world was about to crumble. And in the shadows, powerful and dangerous figures were moving their pieces, preparing to protect their interests at any cost. The storm that had been brewing for months was about to break, and no one would emerge unscathed from its fury. Detective Johnson's office was an austere space, illuminated by the cold light of fluorescence. Alex sat in front of the desk, aware that every word he said from that moment on could change the course of many lives, including his own. "Mr. Mercer, we appreciate your decision to collaborate," the detective began, his voice grave and professional. "We understand that this situation must be difficult for you, considering the family ties involved." Alex nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "Detective, I never imagined I'd be in this position. But after what I've discovered, I know I can't stay silent." For the next 2 hours, Alex shared everything he knew: the documents Emma had gathered, the photos Ray had taken, the conversations he had overheard. With each revelation, Detective Johnson's face grew more serious. "This is bigger than we thought," Johnson muttered, reviewing the evidence. "Mr. Mercer, are you aware that this information could send your ex-wife and your brother to prison for many years?" The question hit Alex like a sledgehammer. Despite all the pain they had caused him, the idea of being responsible for their imprisonment caused him deep anguish. However, he remembered Lucy's words and Ray's warning about the danger of the situation. "I understand, Detective," he finally responded, "and although it hurts me, I know it's the right thing to do. I can't allow them to keep hurting more people." Johnson nodded with approval. "Your testimony will be crucial. We'll need your cooperation in the coming days. Are you willing to help us?" "Yes, Detective. I'll do whatever is necessary," Alex responded with determination. Meanwhile, in a luxurious penthouse in the city center, Melissa was pacing nervously back and forth. Chris, seated on the couch, watched her with a mixture of concern and frustration. "Could you calm down? You're making me nervous," Chris snapped. Melissa stopped, glaring at him. Calm down, how do you want me to calm down when everything is falling apart? First Alex discovers about us, then he finds out about the fund diversion, and now the shark is pressuring us. Do you have any idea what he'll do to us if things go wrong? Chris stood up, approaching her. I know. But panicking won't. Help us. We need to think clearly. And what do you suggest we do? Melissa asked, her voice tinged with sarcasm. I think we should consider leaving. Take the money we've accumulated and disappear before it's too late. Melissa looked at him in disbelief. Run away? That's your great solution? Before Chris could respond, the phone rang. They looked at each other apprehensively before Melissa answered. Hello? Mrs. Vidal, this is Detective Johnson from the police. We need you and Mr. Chris Mercer to come to the station. First thing tomorrow morning to answer some questions. The color drained from Melissa's face. What is this about, Detective? It's better if we discuss it in person. I suggest you come, accompanied by a lawyer. When the call ended, Melissa collapsed on the couch. It was the police. They want us to come in tomorrow for questioning. Chris paled. Do you think that Alex turned us in? Melissa completed. It's most likely, damn it, I knew we couldn't trust him. We have to leave now, Chris said, hurriedly heading towards the bedroom. Pack the essentials, we're leaving tonight. While the couple rushed to pack their bags on the other side of the city, Alex was returning to his apartment. Lucy was waiting for him awake, her face a mixture of relief and concern. Alex, what happened? I was so worried. Alex hugged her tightly before sitting down and telling her everything that had occurred. Lucy listened in silence, holding his hand in support. You did the right thing, love, she finally said. I know it wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I know, Alex responded with a sigh, but I can't help feeling guilty. Despite everything, they're my family. And you're a good man, Alex. It's normal to feel that way, but remember, they made their choices. You're just doing what's right. The sound of the phone interrupted their conversation. It was Emma. Alex, are you okay? I heard you went to the police. Yes, I'm fine. How did you know? I have my sources, she responded enigmatically. Listen, there's something else you need to know. I've been digging deeper and I think I've discovered something big, something that involves very powerful people. I need to see you early tomorrow morning. The concern in Emma's voice didn't go unnoticed by Alex. Sure, let's meet at our usual cafe at 8. When he hung up, Lucy was looking at him expectantly. What's going on? I don't know exactly, but it seems this is bigger than we thought. That night, while the city slept, several scenes were unfolding simultaneously. In the penthouse, Melissa and Chris were finishing packing, preparing to flee. In a dark office, the shark was receiving news of the police investigation and giving orders to his men to handle the situation. At the police station, Detective Johnson and his team were working late, preparing for the operation the next day. And in their apartment, Alex lay awake holding Lucy, while his mind reviewed the events of the last few days and wondered what else fate had in store for him. The next morning promised to be the beginning of a storm that would forever change the lives of all involved. Dawn arrived with a palpable tension in the air. Alex woke up before the alarm went off, his mind already on high alert. He softly kissed Lucy, who was still asleep, and prepared for his meeting with Emma. The cafe was almost empty when he arrived. Emma was already waiting at their usual table, with 2 steaming cups of coffee in front of her. Her face showed signs of fatigue, as if she had spent the night awake. Good morning, Alex, Emma greeted, pushing one of the cups towards him. Thanks for coming so early. Alex sat down, noticing the tension in his friend's voice. Emma, you've got me worried. What did you discover? Emma looked around before leaning forward and speaking in a low voice. I've been following the money trail, Alex, and you won't believe where it's led me. She took a folder out of her bag and opened it on the table. Alex saw a series of documents, photos, and complex diagrams. The money laundering isn't limited to just the salon and the businesses we knew about, Emma continued. It's a huge network that involves high-level politicians, judges, and even some members of the police. Alex felt the ground opening beneath his feet. Are you sure about this? Emma nodded gravely. Completely. And there's more, remember the shark. Well, it turns out he's just a pawn in a much bigger game. As Emma continued revealing her discoveries, Alex realized the real magnitude of the situation. It was no longer just about Melissa and Chris. They were facing a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of power. Emma, it's too dangerous, Alex finally said, his voice barely a whisper. What are we going to do? I've already contacted a trusted journalist, Emma responded. If anything happens to us, all this information will come to light, but for now, I think the best thing is to hand it over to Detective Johnson. He's one of the few we can trust. Meanwhile, at the police station, Detective Johnson and his team were preparing for the interrogations. However, the tension in the atmosphere was evident. Sir, one of the officers said, approaching Johnson, I just received a call. Melissa Vidal and Chris Mercer haven't shown up. Johnson cursed under his breath. Damn it, I should have seen this coming. Issue a search warrant immediately. At that moment, his phone rang. It was Alex. Detective, we have new information. It's urgent that we meet. Johnson felt the situation slipping out of his hands. Mr. Mercer, things have gotten complicated. Your ex-wife and your brother have disappeared. The news hit Alex like a punch. Despite everything, a part of him had hoped that Melissa and Chris would face the consequences of their actions. Their flight only confirmed their guilt. Detective, this is bigger than we thought, Alex said, trying to stay calm. We need to meet immediately. As Alex and Emma headed to the police station on a highway on the outskirts of the city, Melissa and Chris were driving at full speed. Are you sure they're not following us? Melissa asked, constantly looking in the rearview mirror. Chris, with his hands tight on the steering wheel, shook his head. I don't think so, but we can't be too confident. We have to get to the airport as soon as possible. What they didn't know was that, at that very moment, the shark had been informed of their escape, and he wasn't happy at all. Find them, he ordered his men, and when you do, make sure they understand the cost of betraying me. Back in the city, Alex and Emma were arriving at the police station. Detective Johnson received them in his office, his face a mask of concern. Mr. Mercer, Miss Galvez, the situation has become more complicated than we imagined, Johnson said, closing the door behind them. Not only have your ex-wife and your brother disappeared, but we've just discovered that someone has been leaking information from inside the police department. Emma and Alex exchanged glances. Detective, Emma began, I think we have the missing piece in this puzzle. For the next hour, Emma shared all the information she had discovered. Johnson's face went from surprise to anger, and finally to iron determination. This changes everything, the detective finally said. Mr. Mercer, Miss Galvez, what you've discovered is extremely dangerous. From this moment on, you both enter witness protection. Alex felt the world stop. But what about Lucy? What about my life here? What about my job in New York? Johnson looked at him sympathetically. I understand it's a lot to ask, but it's for your safety. You can bring Miss Lucy, but you'll have to disappear for a while. As Alex processed this new reality, somewhere on the highway, Melissa and Chris's car was intercepted by a black vehicle. The shark's men had caught up with them. The storm that had been brewing finally broke with all its fury. And no one, absolutely no one, would emerge unscathed from it. The sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in shades of red and orange. In a safe house on the outskirts, Alex, Lucy and Emma were under the protection of Detective Johnson and his trusted team. The last 48 hours had been a whirlwind of events that had turned their lives upside down. Lucy, sitting next to Alex on a worn-out couch, held his hand tightly. I still can't believe we're in this situation, she murmured, her voice mixed with disbelief and concern. Alex looked at her with a mixture of love and guilt. I'm so sorry, my love. I never wanted to involve you in something like this. Hey, Lucy replied, caressing his cheek. We're in this together, for better or for worse, remember? Emma, who had been talking quietly with Detective Johnson in a corner of the room, approached the couple. Guys, we have news, she said, her face a mask of seriousness. Detective Johnson just received information about Melissa and Chris. Alex visibly tensed. Despite everything that had happened, a part of him still cared about his ex-wife and his brother. What happened? Did they find them? Johnson approached, his expression grave. "I'm afraid so, Mr. Mercer." They were intercepted on the highway by men we believe work for the Shark. Witnesses report a violent altercation. Alex's heart raced. "Are they alive?" Johnson hastened to clarify. "But in critical condition at the hospital, they're under police custody." A heavy silence fell over the room. Alex felt a mixture of relief and anguish. Despite their betrayal, he couldn't help but worry about them. "There's more," Johnson continued. "In the altercation, a briefcase that Melissa and Chris were carrying was recovered. It contained documents that corroborate much of the information you provided us, and more." Emma leaned forward, intrigued. "What kind of information?" "Names, dates, transactions," Johnson responded. "It's the proof we needed to dismantle the entire corruption network, but it also means we're dealing with even more dangerous people than we thought." Lucy squeezed Alex's hand. "What does this mean for us?" Johnson sighed heavily. "It means we'll have to keep you in protection for longer than we expected, and I'm afraid we'll have to postpone your trip to New York, Mr. Mercer." Alex felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. New York had been his dream, his chance to start over. "But now, I understand," he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. Emma, noticing the devastation on her friend's face, intervened. "Alex, I know this is a hard blow, but think that it's temporary. Once all this is resolved, you can resume your plans." Alex nodded, though without much conviction. Lucy, sensing his pain, hugged him tightly. Detective Johnson, after giving them a few moments to process the information, continued, "There's something else you should know. With the recovered information, we've been able to identify several key members of the organization. Among them," he paused as if hesitating to continue, "is the name of Melissa's father, Mr. Ernest Vidal." This revelation fell like a bomb. Alex jumped to his feet, incredulous. Melissa's father? But how is that possible? He always seemed like such a respectable man, a successful businessman. "Apparently that was just the facade," Johnson explained. "According to the documents, Mr. Vidal is one of the main ringleaders of the entire operation. His company has been the center of the money laundering network for years." Alex collapsed back onto the couch, overwhelmed by the information. Suddenly, many things started to make sense. The sudden wealth of Melissa's family, the connections they always seemed to have, the pressure Ernest exerted on him to expand the salon business. "My God," he murmured. "How could I have been so blind?" Lucy hugged him, more tightly. "Don't blame yourself, love. No one could have imagined something like this." Emma, meanwhile, had been processing the information with her usual analytical mind. "Detective," she said, turning to Johnson, "if Mr. Vidal is so involved, don't you think he'll try to use his influences to protect Melissa and Chris?" Johnson nodded gravely. "It's a possibility we're considering. That's why we've reinforced security at the hospital, and we're monitoring all of Vidal's communications." Suddenly, Johnson's phone rang. After a brief conversation, his face became even more serious. "I've just been informed that Ernest Vidal has disappeared. His house is empty, and his private jet took off an hour ago with an unknown destination." The news fell like a bucket of cold water on everyone present. The situation was getting more complicated by the moment. "What does this mean for the investigation?" Alex asked, fearing the answer. "It means we have to move fast," Johnson responded. "If Vidal manages to leave the country, he could disappear with a large part of the evidence and money." At that moment, Emma had an idea. "Detective, remember the documents I found about the organization's properties? There was one in particular, a house on the outskirts, that seemed to be used as a kind of secondary operations center. What if Vidal is heading there before leaving the country for good?" Johnson considered the idea for a moment. "It's a possibility. Good work, Miss Galvez. I'm going to send a team to investigate immediately." As Johnson walked away to give orders to his team, Alex remained thoughtful. Everything he thought he knew about his past life was crumbling. The people he once considered family turned out to be complete strangers involved in a network of crime and corruption. He could never have imagined. Lucy, noticing his turmoil, took his face in her hands. "Alex, look at me. I know all of this is overwhelming, But remember why we're here. You did the right thing by reporting what you knew. You're a brave and honest man, and that's what matters." Alex looked at her gratefully. In the midst of all the chaos, Lucy was his anchor, his reason to keep going. "You're right," he finally said. "We can't change the past, but we can decide how we act now." Emma, who had been listening, approached and put a hand on Alex's shoulder. "And you're not alone in this, Alex. You have us, and Detective Johnson. Together, we're going to get through this." At that moment, Johnson returned to the room, his face a mixture of determination and concern. "We have a lead on Vidal's whereabouts," he announced. "A witness saw him heading towards the outskirts of the city. It seems your theory might be correct, Emma. What are we going to do now?" Alex asked Johnson. Looked at each of them before answering, "We're going after him. It's our best chance to put an end to all of this once and for all. But I need you to understand something. This will be dangerous. Vidal is a desperate man with resources. We don't know what he's capable of." Alex looked at Lucy and then at Emma. Both nodded in silent agreement. "We're with you, Detective," he finally said. "We've come too far to back down now." As the group prepared for what could be the final confrontation somewhere on the outskirts of the city, Ernest Vidal was hurrying to collect the last vestiges of his criminal empire. He was unaware that his son-in-law, whom he had always underestimated, was about to become the key piece in his downfall. Night was falling over the city, and with it, the stage was set for the denouement of this story of betrayal, redemption, and justice. The night was dark and starless when the police convoy headed towards the outskirts of the city. In one of the vehicles, Alex, Lucy, and Emma traveled in silence, each immersed in their own thoughts. Detective Johnson at the wheel kept his eyes fixed on the road, his face a mask of concentration. "We're close," Johnson announced, breaking the silence. "The property you mentioned, Emma, is about 3 miles from here." Alex felt his heart racing. After everything that had happened, they were about to face the man who had been the architect of so much pain and destruction, Melissa's father, the man he once considered a second father. "Detective," Alex said, his voice barely a whisper, "what will happen when we get there?" Johnson looked at him briefly in the rear view mirror. "Our main objective is to arrest Vidal and secure any evidence that might be on the property. But you must understand that this could be dangerous. Vidal is a cornered man, and cornered men are capable of anything." Lucy squeezed Alex's hand, offering her silent support. Emma, for her part, was nervously reviewing the documents she had collected, as if she could find some clue they had overlooked. As they approached their destination, the tension in the vehicle was palpable. Finally, Johnson gave the order to turn off the lights and engines. They would cover the last few yards on foot. "Stay close and follow my instructions," Johnson ordered as the team prepared to advance. The property was an imposing mansion, surrounded by high walls. Despite the hour, lights could be seen on in some windows. Johnson divided his team, sending groups to surround the house. Alex, Lucy, and Emma were instructed to stay back with a couple of officers, but close enough to observe what was happening. The events that followed seemed to unfold in slow motion. Johnson's team burst onto the property, their voices echoing in the night. "Police, nobody move!" Shouts were heard and the sound of breaking glass. Then gunshots. Alex felt Lucy clinging to him tightly. Emma, beside him, held her breath. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the house, running towards the back gardens. Even in the dim light, Alex recognized Ernest Vidal. Without thinking twice, Alex broke free from Lucy's grip and ran after Vidal, ignoring the shouts of the officers guarding them. "Ernest!" Alex shouted, his voice echoing in the night. "Stop!" Vidal turned, surprised to recognize his ex-son-in-law's voice. For a moment, both men looked at each other, separated by just a few yards. "Alex," Vidal said, his voice a mixture of surprise and disdain. "What are you doing here? Have you come to see me fall?" "It didn't have to be this way, Ernest," Alex replied, trying to stay calm. "Why? Why all of this?" Vidal let out a bitter laugh. "Why? For power, for money, for the thrill of being above the law. Something that you, with your pathetic morality, would never understand." "And Melissa? Chris? Did you involve them in this without caring about the consequences?" The mention of his daughter seemed to affect Vidal for a moment. His mask of arrogance cracked. "Melissa, she should never have," he began, but interrupted himself upon hearing the voices of the police approaching. In a desperate move, Vidal pulled a gun from his jacket and pointed it at Alex. You ruined everything," he growled. "If you hadn't interfered..." Time seemed to stand still. Alex saw. Vidal's finger tense on the trigger. He closed his eyes, waiting for the impact, but the shot never came. Instead, there was a dull thud and the sound of a body falling to the ground. When Alex opened his eyes, he saw Vidal on the ground, unconscious, and Emma standing next to him holding a thick branch. "Nobody threatens my best friend," Emma said, her voice trembling slightly. Seconds later, Johnson and his team arrived, securing Vidal and the area. Lucy ran towards Alex, hugging him tightly. "Don't ever scare me like that again," she told him between tears and laughter of relief. As the police led a handcuffed Vidal away, Johnson approached the group. "It was madness what you did," he reprimanded them, although there was a tone of admiration in his voice. "But thanks to you, we've captured the ringleader of this entire operation. The documents we found in the house are the final proof we needed." The following hours were a whirlwind of statements, paperwork, and phone calls. When everything finally calmed down, the sun was beginning to peek over the horizon. Alex, Lucy, and Emma found themselves sitting on the steps at the entrance of the mansion, exhausted but with a sense of relief they hadn't experienced in weeks. "What now?" Lucy asked, resting her head on Alex's shoulder. Alex looked towards the dawn, a small smile forming on his lips. Now we go back to living. New York is waiting for us." Emma looked at them with a mixture of joy and nostalgia. "I'm going to miss you both so much." "Oh, don't think you'll get rid of us that easily," Alex joked. "You'll see how you find excuses to visit us in New York." The three laughed, the sound of their joy mixing with the song of the first birds of the day. Johnson approached them, his face showing the fatigue of the night, but also evident satisfaction. "Mr. Mercer," he said, extending his hand, "I want to personally thank you for your bravery and cooperation. Thanks to you, we've dismantled one of the largest corruption networks in the country." Alex shook his hand, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. "We just did what was right, Detective." "And for that," Johnson continued, "I have the pleasure of informing you that you no longer need to remain under protection. You're free to resume your lives and your plans." The news was received with hugs and tears of joy. After everything they had been through, they could finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. Weeks later, at the international airport, Alex and Lucy were preparing to board their flight to New York. Emma was there to see them off, along with Ray, who had insisted on coming to wish them good luck. "Promise me you'll call as soon as you land," Emma said, hugging them both. "I promise," Alex replied. "And you promise me you'll take care of yourself. No more dangerous investigations, okay?" Emma laughed. "I can't promise that, but I'll try to stay away from international conspiracies for a while." Ray approached, his eyes shining with contained emotion. "Kid, I'm so proud of you. You've faced things that would have broken anyone, and here you are, stronger than ever." Alex hugged the old bartender, grateful for his unconditional support. "Thank you, Ray. For everything, I promise we'll come back to visit you." "You better," Ray replied with a smile. "And when you do, I want to hear all the stories of your New York adventures." The announcement of their flight resonated through the airport speakers. It was time to leave. With a final hug to Emma and Ray, Alex took Lucy's hand, and together they headed towards the boarding gate. As they walked, Alex couldn't help but think about everything that had happened in the last few months. The betrayal, the pain, the struggle for truth and justice. But he also thought about the love he had found, the friendship that had sustained him, and the inner strength he had discovered already on the plane. As they settled into their seats, Lucy noticed Alex's thoughtful look. "What are you thinking about, love?" she asked, intertwining her fingers with his. Alex smiled, looking into her eyes. "How lucky I am. Despite everything that happened, I have so much to be grateful for. I have you. I have incredible friends. And now I have the opportunity to pursue my dreams in New York." Lucy returned his smile, and I'm grateful to be able to share that adventure with you. As the plane took off, rising above the city that had witnessed so many crucial moments in their lives, Alex felt a mixture of nostalgia and excitement. He was leaving behind a turbulent chapter of his life, but he was heading towards a future full of promises. In the city hospital, Melissa was slowly waking from her coma. The first thing she saw was Chris, sitting next to her bed, his face haggard with worry and remorse. Where are we?" Melissa asked, her voice barely a whisper. Chris carefully took her hand. "In the hospital, a lot has happened, Melissa. We have a lot to talk about." Meanwhile, in a maximum security cell, Ernest Vidal contemplated the twilight of his empire, his contacts, his money, his power. Everything had vanished, and in the solitude of his confinement, for the first time in decades, he began to reflect on the consequences of his actions. Back on the plane, Alex took a small box out of his pocket. Inside was a ring he had bought weeks ago, waiting for the right moment. "Lucy," he said, his heart beating hard, "I know we're heading towards a new beginning in New York, but there's something I want to ask you before we start this new chapter." Lucy's eyes widened as she saw the ring. Alex continued, "You've been by my side in the most difficult moments. You've been my strength when I felt I couldn't go on. I can't imagine a future without you, Lucy. Would you do me the honor of marrying me?" Tears sprang from Lucy's eyes as she nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, Alex, 1,000 times yes." Nearby passengers, realizing what was happening, began to applaud and congratulate the couple. In the midst of the excitement, Alex slid the ring onto Lucy's finger, sealing their promise of love and companionship. As the plane soared through the night sky, heading towards the dawn and towards New York, Alex reflected on the incredible journey his life had been up to that point. He had faced betrayals, discovered painful truths, and fought for justice, but he had also found true love, forged unbreakable friendships, and discovered an inner strength he didn't know he possessed. The future was uncertain, as it always is, but Alex no longer feared it. He knew that, whatever happened, he had the love, friendship, and determination to face any challenge that life presented him. As the sun began to peek over the horizon, illuminating the clouds with golden and pink hues, Alex knew that this wasn't the end of his story, but the beginning of a new and exciting chapter. With Lucy by his side and the support of friends like Emma and Ray, he was ready to write the pages of his new life in the Big Apple. And so, as New York approached in the distance, Alex closed his eyes, grateful for the past that had shaped him, excited for the present he was living, and hopeful for the future that awaited him.